Good morning, students. So today I'll be showing you the first practical program in Java using NetBeans. Turn to chapter number 3, that is a revision tool to GUI or graphical user interface programming using NetBeans. Now the question is, you're asked to write a program in Java to demonstrate the use of textarea class. The program should accept the first name, middle name, and the last name of a person as inputs and then add it or append it into a textarea control. So as of now, I'll just minimize this notepad window and then use the mouse cursor to bring it over here, that is onto the icon NetBeans IDE version 8.2. Double click on this icon and then you will see the startup screen of NetBeans IDE version 8.2 getting loaded. Now here is your NetBeans IDE version 8.2 window. The very first thing that you have to do before writing the Java program is to create a project. So use your mouse cursor to bring it over here, that is click on File and then click New Project. And on doing that, a window like this gets displayed where you have to choose Java under Categories and Java Applications under Projects, and then come below, hit the Next button. Then a new window gets displayed exactly like this, where you have to specify the name of the project. You can either leave the name of the project as Java Application 13, or else you can specify a new one. Let me specify a new one. Since our program will be dealing with the textarea class, so let's give the project name as textarea pros battle, and then come below, uncheck this create main class and then hit this finish button. Now on doing that, you will see that your Java project, that is textarea pros battle, gets created. And once your project, that is textarea pros battle, gets created, right click on it, then select new, and from there come over here, select JFrame form and click on it. On doing that, you will see a new window of this form where you have to specify the name of the class for your new JFrame form. You can either leave it as new JFrame, or else you can specify a new name for the class. Let me specify a new name for the class. Let it be textarea pros battle class. So here is your class name, which is textarea pros battle class. Then come below, hit the finish button. So as a result, your class, that is textarea pros battle class, gets created for this form, and this form is the JFrame form. Initially the size of this JFrame form is smaller, but you can extend the size of this form by using your mouse to drag its ends. And once you drag the ends of this form using your mouse, the size of this form becomes much larger. And now that the size of this form has become much larger, depending on your needs, you can put as many controls from this palette section onto the form. Now at first, you are asked to accept the first name, middle name and last name of a person. So you will need 3 labels, one for first name, one for middle name and one for last name. So drag three labels from the swing controls onto this form. By default, the text for these labels are JLabel1, JLabel2, and JLabel3. But you can change it to first name, middle name, and last name. So let's change the label with the text JLabel1 into first name. So click on this label, right click on it, come below and select properties. Then for the text, see the default name is JLabel1. So replace it with first name. Then again for JLabel2, change the default text to middle name. And again for JLabel3, change the default text to last name. As a result, the default text for the first label has changed from JLabel1 to first name. The default text for the second label has changed from JLabel2 to middle name, and the default text for the third label has changed from JLabel3 into last name. Now you need three different text fields for these three different labels for making entries. So find the text fields under the swing controls and drag it onto this form. So this is the first and the second text field, and this is the third text field. Now the entries for first name can be done in the first text field, the entries for middle name can be done in the second text field, and the entry for last name can be done in the third text field. But by default, the text that gets displayed for the first text field is JTextField1. Now what you have to do is that right click on this text field, go to properties, just remove this text. Same you do that with the second text field, remove the default text JTextField2, and again you do the same thing for the third text field. That is, remove the default text field JTextField3. Now you have free spaces in these text fields for supplying the inputs. Now the inputs from first name, middle name, and last name of a person should get appended into a textarea control. Now search for a textarea control under the swing controls. Here is your textarea control, just drag it onto this form. This is your textarea control. The only difference between these text field controls and this textarea control is that these text field controls can accept only single line entries, whereas this textarea control can accept multiple line entries as well. Now the inputs from these text fields should get stored onto this text area control on the click of a button, and the name of that button will be the append button. So at first, let's drag a button from this swing controls onto this form. By default, the text that gets displayed onto this button is J button 1, but you right click on it and go to properties, change the default text from J button 1 into append. Now from time to time you need to save it as well. Now that we have set the text for these controls, we should also know the name of these controls. So let's identify the name for these controls. For the first label having the text first name, its name is JLabel1 as shown in the properties window. Again, for the second label with the text middle name, its name is JLabel2. For the third label with the text last name, its name is JLabel3. For the first text field, its name is JTextField1. For the second text field, its name is JTextField2. And for the third text field, its name is JTextField3. For the button with the text append, its name is JButton1. And for the text area control, its name is JTextarea1 as shown in the properties window. Now the inputs from these text fields will get stored onto this text area control on the click of this append button. So on the click of this append button, a certain piece of Java code will get executed, due to which the entries in these text fields will be extracted and get stored onto this text area control. So double click on this append button. Wait, it was not clicked properly. Double click on this append button, and on double clicking on this append button, this method, that is JButton1 action performed, gets executed. And inside this method, the first statement is a commented line which says to do add your handling code here. That means you are supposed to write the Java code here. So delete this commented line first. The first thing that you have to do is to extract the inputs from these text fields. That is, you have to extract the inputs from JTextField1, JTextField2 and JTextField3 using the getText method. So just write JTextField1 dot getText for extracting the input from the first text field, then JTextField2 dot getText for extracting the input from the second text field, and JTextField3 dot getText for extracting the input from the third text field. And all these inputs that gets extracted from these text fields have to be added together so that the combined name gets displayed onto this text area control. So for adding the inputs for the first name, middle name, and last name, you have to add all these extracted inputs from these text fields using the plus operator. And once these inputs from these text fields gets extracted and added together so that the full name gets displayed in the text area control, we must use the jtextarea.append method. Okay, we must use this jtextarea1.append method and put these extracted entries which were combined together with the help of this plus symbol as an element for the append method. And then end the statement with a semicolon. Now once the inputs from these text fields are combined together and then stored in the jtextarea control, change the mouse cursor immediately to point to the next line. This is because if you do not point the mouse cursor into the next line, then for any second name entry from these text fields onto this text area control, it will be added in the same line as the first name entry. So the second, third, and the future entries of name should get added onto the text area control in different lines, not in the same line. And for that to happen, you just have to add one /n character at the end. So once you have added the /n character at the end of the statement, after every entry of name in the jtextarea control, the mouse cursor will move to the next line so that the next entry of name will continue from the next line. Now just save it. Now go to run and click run project to run this project. So you will see a window like this. Go to the bottom and click OK. So this was the interface that you have designed. These were the three text fields and this is the text area control, whereas this is the append button. Now make an entry for the first name. Let's say the first name is Jane, the middle name is S, and last name is Austin. Now click this append button. The name Jane S. Austin gets displayed in this text area control. Now again, let's say I want to make a second entry of name, the first name of which is Robert, middle name is J, and last name is Miles. Then click the append button. You see the next name, that is Robert J. Miles, gets displayed in the second line and not in the first line. Why do you think so? This is because just after the entry of the first name, that is Jane S. Austin, where text field 1 contained the entry Jane, text field 2 contained the entry S, and text field 3 contained the entry Austin, you have added a /n character, and this /n character brings the mouse cursor from this position to this position, that is from the first line into the second line, so that any new entry of name has been made, it will get stored from these text fields into the text area, but not in the same line as in the first name entry. It will be stored only in the second line. But if you see these names, Jane S. Austen and Robert J. Miles, there is no space between the first name and the middle name, as well as the middle name and last name. So how can you define the space between the first name Jane and the middle name S, and again between the middle name S and the last name Austen? The same will apply for Robert J. Miles. So how can you define the spaces between these first name, middle name and last name? And for that to do, just close this window and put a gap between the first name and middle name like this, and again between the middle name and the last name like this. So save it. Now after putting these white spaces, you can see a gap between the first name and the middle name, as well as you will see a gap between the middle name and the last name. So let's run again. Go to run, click run project. Now let's say I type Jane as the first name, S as the middle name, and Austen as the last name, and then click append. Now see, you can clearly see the gap between the first name Jane and middle name S, and again a gap exists between the middle name S and the last name Austen. Now erase this entry and then type the second name, that is Robert the first name, A the middle name, and Miles the last name, and then click append. Now see, you can even see the gap in the second name, that is between the first name Robert and the middle name A, as well as in between the middle name A and the last name Miles. But there is a problem here. The problem is that once you click the append button, and the contents from these text fields, that is Robert as the first name, A as the middle name, and Miles as the last name, get stored onto these text area control, these contents still appears in these text fields. Now these contents actually should immediately get disappeared once these entries get stored onto these text area controls. So how can you do that? So just come over here. If you want to make the input entry for the first text field, that is jtext field 1, to get disappeared, write jtext field 1 dot set text, then put a space. Then again for the second text field, jtext field 2, write the statement jtext field 2 dot set text. This will remove the content from the second text field. And again for the third text field, that is jtext field 3 dot set text. Inside it you put a space. Now just save it. Now on making these entries, what will happen is that As soon as the entries from these text fields get stored onto this text area control, these entries will get disappeared automatically. So let's see whether it happens or not. Click on run again, and on run project, first name, let's say is Jane, middle name S, and the last name Austin. Click append. See, as soon as the entries from the text fields first name, middle name, and last name get stored onto this text area control, these entries gets disappeared automatically. And that has happened just after we have put white spaces for these entries in the text fields. So let's run the program again. See, all these entries in these text fields automatically gets disappeared just after they get stored in the text area control. Now for the second name, say even for the second name, that is Michael A. Jones, the entries in the text fields gets automatically disappeared. So this is your output, and with this I end this presentation here.